Hello everyone, welcome to Bruno's Geek Reviews. And this is an episode of Bruno's RPG Talk where we're gonna be talking about the Nilbog. And that's an old school open gaming license monster. And we'll have a look at a few iterations of it. Now, any rule set based on the open gaming license is pretty much like, you can easily make it compatible between each other. Just so you all know, I will be speaking of this monster in terms of the rule set I use, which is Castles and Crusades. That's an amazing rule set for D20 based classes, adventuring in dungeons, blah blah blah. I've made many videos on Castles and Crusades in the past, if you want to have a look. But I might refer to some things that are specific to Castles and Crusades, but overall, anything I say about these monsters will reflect pretty much any open gaming license, OSR game, or whatever out there. And we're just gonna have fun. Basically, to just kind of explain, Castles and Crusades you can use like the original Fiend Folio. You can use the monsters from there with Castles and Crusades, and you can use the Tome of Horrors Complete, the Sword and Wizardry version, easily made to work with Castles and Crusades, and of course, Castles and Crusades own Monsters and Treasure. So I'll be having a look at the Nilbog in these different books, these iterations. Now, I want to warn you all, this video might not be for everyone because there's no preparation, there's not going to be any editing. I'm basically going to crack open the books, read the Nilbog section out loud to you. Maybe not word for word, but I'll kind of like, whatever is related to rules that could be used. I'm not going to be looking so much at the fluff, the fiction. Like, I'm not going to be that interested in like how do they interpret it story-wise. I'm just going to look at, okay, the Nilbog, how it works in the rules. That's what I'm going to be looking at. But there's no preparation that comes with this, so if you don't like, if you think it's fun to watch someone like open a role-playing book and kind of like read it with you, if you will, and discuss what they're reading and comparing with the other versions, this video is for you. If you would find it extremely boring, like, hey, no problem. We'll see you next time in in another video talking about something else. I'm trying it out. Let me know in the comments if you like this or not. I think some people will enjoy it, but might not be for everyone. Okay, so I'm gonna go in order of kind of like order of when these books came out and such. So I'll start with the Fiend Folio. Now, I will still, let's say, we still have to establish, for those who don't know what the Nilbog is as a monster. It's kind of like a goblin, but there's like a time anomaly around the goblin, so weird stuff happens. And one of the weird things is that when you hit the Nilbog, you're not hurting it, or you're healing it. Maybe it's I'm going by memory now. So again, no preparation whatsoever here. Okay, let's see. So in the Fiend Folio, there's no image for Nilbog. It starts without an image for it, but it does say, this creature looks exactly like a normal goblin. So I guess they figured, you know what, you already know what a goblin looks like from the monster manual, so you don't need us to draw it again. Let's see what they say. So for the sake of not making this video like too long either, I'm going to be skipping things like hit dice, normal attacks and such. I'm just going to be looking at the weird stuff that the Nilbog does. And again, when I discuss saving throws, I might discuss it specifically to the game system I use, Castles and Crusades. But I think even if you use another system, I think this could still be fun for you. Unless you're the person who decided that you don't want to watch someone reading a book, which I wouldn't blame you for. I think this is a very niche video. Okay. Let's see. Well, I said I wasn't going to read the fluff, but let's read the fluff of the original at least, so we have kind of like an established idea of the Nilbog. This creature looks exactly like a normal goblin and has all the characteristics of that race, with one important exception. It suffers from a curious spatio-temporal reversal. It remains a mystery why only goblins are susceptible to this strange disorder. Nilbogism, the name given to the disorder, appears to occur when overly heavy use of magic strains the fabric of the space-time continuum and leads to some very strange localized events. The coincidence of conditions which lead to Nilbogism is extremely rare and is only imperfectly understood. Although the creature itself does not in any sense transmit the disorder to those around it, some of the effects are transmitted. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Because of the special powers. Many and varied accounts. Oh yeah. So okay. Oh, just a little pause here. I almost have no choice but to read it because the Fiend Folio. It's not like it gave you like these are the powers of the monster. You had to read the text, so they kind of mix the fluff with what the monster can do. So we can't really, because for example, it says special defenses, see below, so they kind of, the way it was made, it wasn't like now where you can kind of grab a monster, ignore the fiction attached to the monster, and just look at the special abilities or the special attacks. You had to read the whole thing to know what it did, which I think made it's kind of interesting because it attached the lore to the stats a bit more, but I do think it made it more impractical to grab a monster on the fly during a game. Like this, the random encounter tables and such. Imagine a lot of old school game masters, unless they were like deeply familiar with the book, had to kind of like start reading and the players are waiting. Which again, like I'm not against that. I think sometimes it's good for players to wait a bit while the game master checks a few things. But if you can stat out the monster in a way that's maybe a bit more friendly for the DM, the game master, I think that's better. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, okay. Many and varied accounts have been received about the nature of the space-time disturbances which take place in the presence of Nilbogs. Only one factor appears to be common. The adventurers will have no control over their own actions. They will generally pursue courses of action contrary to their normal intent. For example, they may feel an overwhelming compulsion to load all the treasure into an empty treasure chest in the Nilbog lair and leave empty-handed. There are no saving throws against these effects, nor is there any known defense, though powerful spells such as Wish will, if used properly, have a good chance of rendering local immunity against the effects. Okay. This is interesting because it's kind of unthinkable these days to imagine a monster with abilities that have no saving throws. So I'm going to elaborate on that. I'm just going to finish reading this. Another curious feature of Nilbog power is that the creature gains hit points when it is struck. Okay, the addition being equal to the intended damage roll. Okay, so basically, like that's a long-winded way of saying they gain the same amount of hit points they should have been taking. Well, okay, now I'm butchering how I would have worded it differently to make it a bit shorter, but whatever. Yeah, it can only lose hit points by such means as casting Cure Wound spells on it, forcibly feeding it healing potions, and so on. So this is interesting because, like, if you don't have a cleric with you or someone who can cast Cure spells, if you have healing potions, you can still like force the Nilbog to drink it. And you can always, like, if you can't kill an enemy, you can always like tie it up. I think that would be an obvious solution against Nilbogs is to grab a net or something. Or anyway. For obvious reasons, encounters with these strange creatures are dreaded, and as a result, normal goblins tend to be treated with extreme caution, lest they turn out to be Nilbogs. Okay, we'll get back to that bit. There appears to be no way of distinguishing between the two apart from the use of such spells as commune or by trial and error. So commune doesn't allow you to know it's a Nilbog. Okay. So far as is known, no other creature has been afflicted with Nilbogism. Okay, I want to read Commune, because I don't remember the spell. Because I'm going to give my opinions on the way the monster is made now. But first I want to know what I'm talking about. So Commune, this book is new and it smells amazing. Just want to share that. Oh yeah, that's the stuff. I just imagine someone at home like watching this video and they go, "Oh yeah," and the person like someone around in the house is like, "What are you watching?" Okay. Commune, a level 5 cleric spell, at least in terms of Castles and Crusades. The caster can attempt to contact the character's deity or agents and ask questions that can be answered by a simple yes or no answer. A cleric with no particular deity contacts a philosophically allied deity. Okay. This spell should be used sparingly, as this favor could begin with frequent use. The caster's log when okay, so now they're going to how. So basically, you're asking your god for a yes or no answer. You're asking about information, and it says here that a Nilbogism. I just want to make sure I got this right. So they say that commune doesn't work. Okay. Oh wait. Oh, okay. So the way it's worded is kind of confusing because they say there appears to be no way of distinguishing between the two apart from the use of such spells as commune or by trial and error. I think they meant except from the use. Oh no, apart. Okay, I know. I thought they meant the two apart, distinguishing the two apart. But they mean distinguishing the two apart from the spell. So commune does work because trial and error obviously would work. So the sentence would. Okay, so that was a very confusing way of wording it, because when I read the two apart, I meant distinguishing the two apart, ... from the use. So, but I meant there's no way of distinguishing the two ... apart from the use of the. So see that I feel like that wasn't the best wording because it's confusing. Apart is the two apart or apart from those methods. Okay, so commune does work because I was about to say like. God's not being able to, I'm okay with some monsters being like, oh, they can deny you the use of detect alignment, but like, if a god can't even tell you is that a goblin or a Nilbog, that would have been kind of weird. Okay. See, so the Nilbog seems to have started as an FU monster to players, like who got a bit too cocky, according to a game master, when players didn't fear a goblin. There's many ways of solving that. Like some goblins might be more experienced, might have more hit dice, might have some tricks up their sleeves, some magic items or whatever. But apparently, like, and this I think I don't know who wrote the Nilbog. Yeah, let's see if we can give credit to who wrote the Nilbog. Who wrote this? You know what? Actually, I think in the Tome of Horrors Complete later we'll credit the author of the Nilbog because they do mention each monster was created by this or that person. So I'm not going to spend too much time looking for it here because I think the Tome of Horrors Complete does mention it. Okay, let's see. We're already 13 minutes in. Let's try to. Okay, so the confusion apart, I was gonna complain about commune not working, but it does work. So yeah, Nilbog was made to mess with players, so they would fear goblins. Like, there's a lot of monsters like that. The GM just wanted to have a little thrill messing with the players. Still an interesting monster, nevertheless. And has an interesting background. Now, let's see. What I find interesting is that there's no saving throw. And the putting treasure in the chest is just an example given. So that means that basically the game master, and this is where it's interesting because in very old school versions, like there was a lot of trust in the game master that the game master would run things that made sense for the game and the campaign. And these days, it's kind of like the rules are made to also keep in check the game master. And some players act like the game master is not to be trusted with decisions, and the rules should cover everything. So it's not left to game master bias. Whereas the older games, like it was all about the game master bias. The game master decided things for better or worse, and but I think it's not a bad thing because you should be in a group that you trust and that you get along with anyway. If you're not, you shouldn't even be playing with them. So I don't think that's an issue. Which might be a controversial opinion. I don't know. But yeah, so I find it interesting how okay, so it's very simple, it's very straightforward, like regarding wounds, like when you hit it, it gains those hit points, okay. And you can wound it with cure, potions, and spells. That's very straightforward. Also, you know, there's nothing that will, you can very well just trap it, tie it up, or, you know, I think there's a lot of ways that you can deal with a Nilbog without hit point damage, even entering into the picture. It didn't say, does it have some sort of magic resistance? It says magic resistance standard. What did that mean in the old Fiend Folio? Let's see. What is it? Oh yeah. A magic resistance indicates a percentage chance of a spell slowly failing. The basis of fierce spellcasting. Let's see. Okay. Magic resistance indicates the percentage chance of a spell absolutely failing if it is cast at or on the monster in question. The base, oh yeah, because monsters didn't have saving throws, I guess, back then. With Castles and Crusades, I think I would just, instead of using this, I would just use like the normal saving throw rules for monsters. But let's have a look here at what they say. The basis of the figure is a spell cast by a magic user of the 11th experience level. The figure must be adjusted upwards by 5% for each experience level below 11th, or downward by 5% for each experience level above 11th or of the spellcaster. Okay. Thus, a monster with 95% magic resistance cannot be affected by a spell cast by a magic user the 10th experience level or lower. Well, okay, yeah, because 95% plus 5% or more is beyond 100. While a 12 level magic user has a 10% chance of affecting it. Yeah, which is to say, if it's 12 level, so that's 1 above 11, so 5% more, so the monster would have 90% chance. Okay. Oh, okay, wait. Note that even if a spell does overcome the magic resistance of a monster, the monster is still entitled to normal saving throws. Oh, okay, so they had saving throws, so I'm sorry. Again, when I use these books, I use a Castles and Crusades book, so I don't always notice all these little details until I have to do a video about it, I guess. So magic resistance standard. Okay, so I guess it has so standard means that unless standard means that unless you're 11th level magic user or spellcaster, you can't use it. Let's see. Oh no, there has to be a percentage mentioned, but I don't see one for the Nilbog. So if anyone wants to clarify that, you can do so in the comments down below. I do not see any percentage, so starting percentage. So I guess when they say standard, it just means that they just use the saving throws. Okay, I'm looking at other monsters. Okay, that's what it means. Yeah, I got it. Okay. So standard just means there's no magic resistance. They just use their saving throws. Wait, I have an example of a substandard magic resistance just on top the Needleman. So let's Needleman here. No, here. Yeah, there it is. It's substandard, see below. Okay, this creature is particularly vulnerable to magic. Attacks on it by magical means will inflict triple damage on it. though it has a saving throw as normal. Okay, got it. So when I see magic resistance standard, it's just normal saving throws. Got it. That took a long time. See, if I were to edit the video, I would edit this out, but I don't. No time for that. And thus we're 20 minutes in, just the first version. The other ones should be faster. So what I find interesting is that this is basically a monster where players need to trust the game master. It just says that people will act weird around the Nilbog, so the game master can kind of decide what that's going to mean. They give a suggestion with such as adventurers putting treasure in the chest, but it could be anything. And there's no saving throw. But I find that interesting because it makes, let's say that the players, let's say the game master is not trying to kill the players and not, you all jump into a spike pit. Let's say it's just they put the treasure in the chest. In this case, I think that it's interesting. What if the adventurers try to beat up a goblin? The goblin doesn't go down. They all end up putting their treasure in the chest, and they end up leaving. They put the treasure in the chest, they leave, and then they're like, "Why did we do that? There's no saving throw. It just happens." And I think that's interesting sometimes to not have a saving throw, because a saving throw sometimes is what the monsters do, or what makes their encounters interesting, what makes their encounters challenging. And of course, there's saving throws have their place, of course, but I find sometimes a successful saving throw means that the monster is just boring. You don't find out what it was supposed to be able to do that was special. The monster doesn't get to do something memorable, whereas sometimes when the players fail their saving throws, they're going to be talking about that fight for years. Remember that time when you got hypnotized, or remember that time when the monster was holding you up in the air while you're fighting it, and it moved you over a spike pit in the air. When players fail those saving throws, then it gets interesting, because that's when it gets cinematic, or it gets weird or memorable. Now imagine if the Nilbog had a saving throw and they don't do anything weird, then yeah, it's already kind of interesting that it's a goblin they couldn't put down, but I guess then the Nilbog just ends up either leaving or stabbing them, because it can be killed if they don't have a clue of what to do. Although again, I think any experienced players would think, even if they don't know about the healing thing, they might okay, we can't kill it, let's just tie it up or something, let's grapple it, let's hold it, any number of things. So, or let's bargain with it. So I think it makes them, as long as the game master is not doing something crappy, you all go step into a spike pit. If it's not something like that, I think it's more interesting that it doesn't have a saving throw. And you better believe if the adventurers all put their stuff in a chest and walked away, they're gonna go back for it. But now they might want to be more prepared. They might look into it. They might learn about Nilbogism, or maybe Game Master allows for an ability check or some sort of knowledge check to see if any of the characters might know something. So, for example, in the Castles and Crusades Player's Handbook, the bards have. I just want to make sure I use the correct term for this game and not a term from another iteration of this type of game. Super Barbarian. See, the bards have legend lore. Bards are masters of myth and archaic knowledge. With a successful attribute check, a bard gains or remembers some relevant information. Anyway, about stuff, blah blah blah. Okay, so or whatever other thing you think is relevant. So then maybe one of the players is like, that must have been a Nilbog. We must have come across a Nilbog, and then they prepare for it. And an example I can find in fiction of no saving throw, this just happens, and the heroes have to be really smart about how to deal with it then, is, for example, in Doctor Who, the Silence, those aliens that you forget right after seeing. And what the characters do is they start marking, putting a mark with they draw a line on their arm or something to let them know because you forget that you saw them as soon as you're not looking at them. So those monsters, you look at them, they're there. But if you look away, your brain forgets they saw them. There's no saving throw. There's no moments when the characters, through sheer willpower, manage to remember it. They just forget it. It's just automatic. So the players have to be creative. So in Doctor Who, they start marking, okay, I just saw one. So then if they look away for a moment, they see the mark, they know that there's a silence around them. There's one of those monsters. So if the Nilbog, whatever weird thing it does, the players can have to find a way around it, which is really interesting. So I don't know. Maybe what they do is if they know about the healing potion thing, maybe they know they're going to leave their treasure there as an impulse when they go. So maybe they prepare some healing potions, but put another label on them. I don't know, like a label of attracting female goblins or something, and then Nilbog sees that, oh cool, drinks it, and by the way, that would be a very immoral potion to drink, okay? But the Nilbog is evil, so there you go. Whatever, like a potion that would be interesting, a potion of giving you wings, no, not a Red Bull. And then the Nilbog sees this, oh, that's amazing, but it's actually like a healing potion, drinks it and just got damaged, So there's ways, and if they know they're going to leave all of that, then maybe they mislabel some potions, and okay, he's going to drink healing potions, and that's how we're going to get to that Nilbog. Or there's a lot of ways you can be creative with that. So I actually really, really like the version of the Nilbog from the original Fiend Folio. Now we're going to have a look at the Tome of Horrors Complete, which is for the Swords and Wizardry rule set. Again, just very usable with Castles and Crusades, and also, like, everything I'm talking about, very usable with Swords and Wizardry as well, of course. So, let's see. The Nilbog. Okay, see, there you go. Nice. So this is what I like about this book. Sometimes if you're curious about who created what monster, copyright notice. Okay, so the credit. The Nilbog originally appeared in the first edition Fiend Folio from 1981. And then copyright notice. Author Scott Green, that's the one who wrote this version. He's the one who wrote this version. Based on original material by Roger Musson, Musson. So Roger Musson created the Nilbog. Thank you, sir, for this creation. I get to do a video of today, and we get a picture in this one of a Nilbog. And wait, I have to align the camera. There you go. Okay, let's see what this one does. The Nilbog is a goblin afflicted with... I'm just reading them, after all. I said I wouldn't, but... The Nilbog is a goblin afflicted with strange space-time reversal disease known as Nilbogism. The disease appears to occur when overly heavy use of magic strains the fabric of space-time continuum and leads to some very strange localized events. The disease only affects goblins and is not transmitted by them. In appearance, Nilbogs are indistinguishable from goblins. A Nilbog constantly emanates an aura of confusion in a 20-foot radius. Okay, so now they have put a concrete rule on this. It's no longer up to the game master what happens. It's a confusion spell. We'll have a look at the Castles and Crusades version of it in a moment. A creature in the area must succeed on a saving throw or be affected. Now there's a saving throw, so you see, half of what makes a Nilbog interesting could just go away. If all the players succeed their saving throw, then they just have a goblin who's kind of oddly difficult to kill, which actually I don't like as much as the previous version because of that. I know that modern players like to have saving throws for everything, but I actually prefer the other one. So let's keep reading. Maybe there's an aspect I really like. When struck by any attack that would normally damage it, the Nilbog actually gains hit points equal to the damage the attack would have otherwise dealt. Yeah, that seems like a clearer way to word it than what I read before. I think it's different, right? Yeah. A Nilbog gains any extra hit points above its normal as temporary hit points, though it can never have more than twice its normal hit points. Okay, that's a clarification that wasn't there in the original. That's welcomed. Just so if they come back later to fight a Nilbog, the game master can kind of keep track of where the Nilbog is at. The Nilbog can only be damaged through the use of curative magic and effects, cure light wounds and healing potions, for instance. So it clarifies it's not only those two, but I think as a game master I would have elaborated, if there were other sort of healing effects I would have allowed it, but now this makes it more clear. So again, a bit more of a modern way of explaining things, which leaves little details explained in a very concise way. So Scott Green, I might be complaining about the saving throw, but I find the way you have focused the information and made some details clearer is amazing. Curative magic deals damage equal to the amount it would normally heal. There you go. Okay. So I find that this it doesn't mention anything about commune or trial and error, and because I think when you think about it, it actually goes without saying. It's just that Fiend Folio, I guess, was kind of giving examples of how to find out. Because when you think about it, like if it does work, why even bring it up? Like that's a suggestion, I guess. So no more weird things happen. For example, they leave their treasure in the chest. Now it's confusion. So let's have a look. I find this Nilbog more readily usable, more game master friendly, and also maybe some game masters might struggle to find an idea for what the Nilbog's gonna do. So yeah, okay, that it specifically confusion spell is good. I think Scott Green did a good job adapting the Nilbog. I still prefer the old one for the more freestyle aspect and the fact that players don't get to save against it. I find that makes it more interesting. Let's see. Confusion spell. Again, Swords and Wizardry, the spell might have been different, but because I'm running it for Castles and Crusades, this is what interests me, this version. Also, I'm pretty sure they're fairly similar to each other. Confusion. Okay. It's a level 4 wizard or illusionist spell. Castles and Crusades is illusionist, but level 4 magic user if you must. This spell causes creatures to behave randomly as indicated on the following table. So you roll a d10, it's wander away for 1 minute unless prevented. Attempt mundane tasks like cooking for 1 round. Do nothing for 1 round. Knitting. Nothing for 1 round. Try to locate lost items for 1 round. Attack nearest creature for 1 round, or act normally for 1 round. Wandering creatures leave the scene as if disinterested. Any confused creature who is attacked automatically attacks its attackers on its next turn. Spell's area of effect is 50 feet by 50 feet. Okay. I really like, by the way, as a side note, in the new printing of Castles and Crusades, you have there's descriptions of the spells, like important details like the area of effect, and there's a different letter color, font color, so that information stands out. That's really user friendly, very very user friendly. These new printings. It's not boring. It's kind of funny the things that can happen. Although the fact that it leaves room to a saving throw means that it might be a case where, like, if all the players succeed, the monster really becomes a lot less memorable. Which I'm sure a lot of players and even game masters are going to disagree with me on this, but I prefer the no saving throw when it's something kind of like weird, whimsical, or just annoying, but not. It's not going to kill your characters. It's just going to be really, really annoying. Like, I just left all my magic items in the chest, and I walked away. What the heck? This is still fun and interesting, I think. But also the fact that they give specific thing makes the Nilbog more manageable, more understandable. Whereas, like, the old version, I think, like, the game master can throw 2 different Nilbogs and they're going to do 2 completely different things. Or maybe the game master makes his own or her own random table, or just players dealing with different game masters will be like, oh well, it's a Nilbog. I kind of know what it does, but it depends on game master, right? So this game master might have a very different idea of what it could do. So it makes it more interesting. However, I have to admit, maybe even for starting game masters, or the Tome of Horrors Complete version is more user-friendly, unless you're really comfortable. I think the Fiend Folio version so far, if I compare these two, is if the players really trust the game master, if they're okay with things happening that they will have a harder time avoiding, or they have to go through trial and error, they might have to go back and try to recover lost stuff. And the Tome of Horrors Complete feels more fair because it has the saving throws and it's more standardized. It's more user friendly. I think Scott Green really modernized the Nilbog in that version. To modern standards of what people expect from Nilbog or any monster. Okay, now the monsters and treasure. Now, I love Castles and Crusades. I think this is coming across, right? I do have a huge nitpick. I kept being it really annoys me. Let's have a look at the. By the way, isn't this an amazing cover? Look, it continues on both sides. It's beautiful. It's based on the old first edition Monster Manual, but like just updated. And the same goes for like all of the new printings of the. I mean, it's one of the available covers. There's many available covers, but I went with the homage covers. Okay, so one thing that really annoys me. Let's have a look first at the Goblin. Because I'm a Castles and Crusades fanboy, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to nitpick when I see some stuff that bugs me. Let's see. And the thing that bugs me... Well, actually... No, okay. I'm gonna at some point I'm gonna talk about the books, and there's something I thought of, but I'll bring it up when I discuss the books. So let's look at the Goblin. Okay. So first of all, the Goblin in Castles and Crusades looks like as follows. So this is what a Goblin looks like in Castles and Crusades, right? So in the very same book, let's look at the Nilbog, which are creatures that look exactly like goblins, right? Okay. Now, I'm going to read the first sentence before I show the picture. The Nilbog is in almost all respects like a common goblin. Their height, weight, size, hit dice, attacks, alignments, and all are identical to its myrmidon cousin. Indeed, a Nilbog is likely to be found in a group of goblins and will be almost impossible to distinguish from the rest. The difference will become painfully obvious, however, if combat is initiated. Okay. Except, look at the image within the same book. So it looks nothing like the Goblin. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, this is a nitpick. I love this book. It's beautiful. It's full color, which I'll talk about in another video about these new printings. I'm gonna make a video in itself for the new printings. But I always, back in the day when I was using black and white Castles and Crusades books, I always wished I had like beautiful books in my hands with those rules, so I guess it would be more attractive to players, you know, that I wanted to convince that this game was awesome. And so I'm really happy about this. I don't want to make it seem like I'm not, but it really bugs me that a Nilbog is supposed to look exactly like a goblin. It looks nothing like a goblin within the same book, okay? I have to get it out of my system. So just so you know, like I'm not this like fanboy who's only gonna say good things about it. I can, you know, there's things that can bug me as well. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna read for a moment in very short silence to skip stuff that you might already know about. Okay, you know what? It's kind of interesting. They do have a bit of lore expansion here, their own version of it. So I'm actually going to read it once more. Nilbogs are the unfortunate victims of a strange affliction that has only ever been seen in goblins. They are strengthened by pain and damage, harmed by decency and healing. Harmed by decency and healing. Okay. All goblins are horrid, rude little creatures, but Nilbogs take this to another level. They attack unquestionably and without warning. They insult and demean, hurt and humiliate without care. They will do anything possible to have others attack them, for in this they gain strength. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, that's an interesting take. In much the same way, so I guess you can't really use diplomacy with this one. In much the same way, they also feed on others' negativity and will do much to incur others' wrath. Normally, this nastiness coupled with unparalleled bravery would automatically raise the worth of any goblin and have others in his band revere him as a king. But the Nilbog's need for hostility and despair will cause him to shun such a position, and he will actively fight to avoid it. To this end, most goblins leave him to his own devices. Okay. Okay. So, strengthened by damage. Anytime a Nilbog takes damage, he will be strengthened. Okay, so that's a different take. For every 10 points of damage he takes... Now the Nilbog has 1d6 hit dice. Okay. For every 10 points of damage he takes, a Nilbog will gain a +1 on all attack rolls as well as armor class. For instance, a Nilbog that has taken 34 hit points of damage will attack with a +3 to hit and a +3 to damage and an armor class of 18. However, his starting hit points will never change due to damage. Oh, okay. So I was gonna say if he has 1d6. Again, I tried to read it like as if I hadn't read the other versions. So, if Nilbog takes massive damage in one round, 5 times its hit points or greater, he will gain an extra attack that round in addition to all other benefits. Okay. The only thing that will harm Nilbog is healing. Okay, same thing as usual. Cure spells harm him for a like amount of damage. Okay. A healing potion of any type forced down his throat is poison to him. Even those treating him nice will drive him away. For decency and goodness are born to a Nilbog. Okay, that's interesting. I do have some comments, but that part is interesting. Luckily, this disorder has never been seen in any other creature. How and why have yet to be determined, mainly due to the fact that encountering a Nilbog is extremely rare, and many sages deny that they even exist. More than a few adventurers would argue that point. Okay. So this one shifts the bookkeeping from damage to every 10 points of damage, they get a +1 on attack rolls and armor class. Oh, see, this is interesting because they say for every 10 points of damage he takes, Nilbog will get +1 on attack rolls and armor class. They don't mention damage. But then in the example, for instance, Nilbog that has taken 34 hit points of damage will attack with a +3 to hit, +3 to damage, in an armor class of 18. So normally it's 15, it's +3. So they actually mean attack rolls, damage, and armor class, but they forgot to mention damage at first, and then in the example they mentioned damage. So there's a little mistake there. But if you read the example, you'll see it. So it's not dramatic, but there's a little mistake where they forgot to mention damage at first. And hit points don't change, so I guess there's some tracking. So instead of tracking the hit points, you track how much stronger it got. You could argue this Nilbog is more dangerous. It doesn't. Okay, let's see. And if it takes massive damage in one round 5 times its hit points, he gains an extra attack. In addition to all other benefits. Okay. It doesn't have any confusion. It doesn't have the confusion thing. So I don't like that this Nilbog doesn't have the confusion thing. The bookkeeping gets really dangerous as they fight. The bookkeeping of it's getting stronger, has more attacks, or it's getting more hit points, I think cancels one another. It's bookkeeping anyway. So that part is just a different way of handling the fact that okay. This one is more dangerous, directly dangerous, and less whimsical, I think. Even though the other one's dangerous, but this one, like, I can easily imagine like the Nilbog hitting hard real quick. Like, if players don't pick up on what's going on, ignore the cues, and keep striking the Nilbog, the Nilbog is really dangerous in this. So that's interesting. There's one thing I don't like. It doesn't have any sort of confusion effect. It doesn't have, which I think that made it more interesting to me. Like the fact that this is kind of like a sort of Hulk. Well, Hulk is the angrier he gets, the stronger he is. Okay, the more you hit it, the Nilbog, the stronger the Nilbog will be. Is fun and interesting, but removing the whole confusion either up to the game master or through a spell, I think makes the Nilbog less memorable in that sense. I do think it's very interesting, so being harmed by the cure spells stays the same. In a way, it's also really easy to kill this Nilbog because the other one is like healing will damage the Nilbog, but even if you find out that you've been hitting it for a while, it's still gonna have a massive pool of hit points. This one is gonna hit really hard, but it still only has 1d6 hit dice. So that means that a single cure healing spell could take it out right away. So it's kind of interesting how it's like it's more dangerous in its attacks, but also more squishy once you figure out the problem. Because in the other ones, you might have a big like pool of hit points to kind of like deal with you having figured out how to hurt it. It's still gonna be difficult to kill a Nilbog, but this version stays at even the maximum hit points at 6 hit points, for example. So that's actually interesting, I have to admit. But Yeah, I think it makes the Nilbog less whimsical, which might be, it depends on people. I kind of like, again, I think the Fiend Folio one is on top for me. But I think it's interesting how they have said, because it's like let's see, even those treating him nice will drive him away, for decency and goodness are born to a Nilbog. So this is interesting if you want to include a Nilbog and you want to include an NPC, who's really pure and kind, like a child who shows up, and then the Nilbog is disgusted because the child will be kind to the Nilbog as well, and it leaves or something, and then it gives an interesting thing for the players to react to. But I don't see in the middle of combat how any player would be kind to the Nilbog, so I don't see how that would come up unless they were really prepared ahead of time. But then it's not really, once you figure out you really did figure it out, like you're just kind to the Nilbog, it just goes away. So it becomes kind of like you cancel the encounter. Whereas the previous versions, if you know what a Nilbog might do, the Tome of Horrors Complete, I wasn't like a fan of the saving throw, but at the same time, at least that's one way to deal with it if it's not a specific thing that will happen. Or in the Fiend Folio, like there's no saving throw, but you know what happens or what might happen, so you can prepare for it. Unless the game master for first Fiend Folio version decides it's always random, I don't know, and decides on the spot. I think this one is really interesting, I really do, but I think it's interesting on paper, whereas the other versions are more interesting in play, I believe. And personally, the one I will be using, an interesting way of doing it might be to use all three of them, depending on the moment, for different Nilbogs, so players never know what to expect with a Nilbog, which is kind of the point of the Nilbog. Although they seem rare, so I don't know how often they should show up, unless you have like this like space-time continuum issue one on your campaign. But I would actually go with the original Fiend Folio Nilbog in this case. I think for me, I like to come up with weird stuff, so I would have fun with like what players do around the Nilbog, like what is it that they do, maybe I would have fun with something like they start like doing some task for the Nilbog, like or something like that, or that'd be kind of funny. I don't know. But funnily enough, I would actually use the Tome of Horrors Complete as a guideline for certain details that the original one left out, like how to handle like those extra hit points, or including everything that's healing, not just those two things of the healing potion and the cure spell. So if a paladin uses lay on hands, that to me is also would damage the Nilbog and such. Okay, so that's been like over 45 minutes of me talking about this Nilbog. If anyone at all, like just one person, if you enjoy it, just like let me know in the comments. I'll do more. I'm thinking the next one I would do is it doesn't show up in all the books I showed here, only 2 out of the 3, but the next one I would do is I'm going to pronounce it the way I can pronounce it, the Penangalan, and that's this one. So that's if anyone enjoys the Nilbog, I might do a video on the Penangalan next, and again compare the different versions. So everyone, thanks very much for watching, and have a nice one.